Hello, my name is Clare Bolton, and I'm the gallery manager at the Aurora Cultural Center. Our online exhibition, Beyond the Walls, showcases the art of the Uxbridge Artist Collective, and it continues until September 26th. So I invite you to visit auroraculturalcenter.ca and navigate to our gallery page and enjoy the exhibition. Welcome to another episode of Art Bytes, our online series that gives you an insider look into the creative process. We've featured many artists from our online exhibition, and if you've missed any episodes, please visit our Aurora Cultural Center YouTube channel. Today, joining Carmel, Brennan, and myself in conversation are Carol and Charlie Stevens from Crossville, Tennessee. These artists have experience painting the Ontario landscape with the artists from the Uxbridge Artist Collective, have become friends, and continue to inspire many members of the group. We welcome them to Ontario virtually. Carol Stevens began taking Saturday morning art classes at a young age. Following that passion, she graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a broad field art education. An art teacher for over 30 years and a professional photographer for 13 years with her husband, Charlie, Stevens now enjoys retirement, painting, and traveling. Having a photographer's eye, she looks for the light in each composition. Her painting has been highly influenced by portrait photography and on plein air painting experiences. After attending Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design for sculpture, Charlie Stevens became a graphic artist for 34 years. And for the last 13 years, a wedding and portrait photographer with his wife, Carol. His first passion is sculpture. We're delighted to have both of them here this afternoon. And with us, we have Carmel Brennan, and we'll start with Carmel telling us a little bit about her connection to Carol and Charlie.
Well, the first time I went to Spain, I was kind of coerced by Audra Noble, another artist friend, and I met Carol over there, and we just got along great. It was just a fabulous experience. Our conversations, because she's an artist and a teacher, our conversations were lively and interactive, always about art and methods, and such fun. And when Carol came back to the States, she met Charlie, and I'll tell you a little story about that. I think this is true. She answered an ad in the paper of a fellow he was a sculptor, looking for a model. And that's Carol, and that's the story ever since. They've been together. We've always had such fun. We visit each other as much as possible. They used to live in Wisconsin, and now they're in Tennessee. And they come up to Canada, to Ontario, and we visit Killarney, and we have such fun. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Carol, I wanted to know about your painting. You start with, this is much different than the process of a lot of people when they paint. You start with an undercoating of acrylic and do your underlayer. And I know it's because it's got a fast drying. Can you just tell me about that process, and then you go over and finish it in oil?
Sure, yep. Actually, I was introduced to that process by Shelby Keefe. She is a fantastic plein air artist. I took a course with her, and her method was to do the complementary color underneath, which I have done in the past. And you'll see it in the short video if you get a chance to look at it. The little girl's face is blue to start out, and her hat is purple, and eventually the painting behind me of the portrait, her face obviously becomes flesh tone and yellow. So the opposite colors are underneath. The reason why I do it is I'm a very fast painter. I like to work rapidly, and it heeds the process along. So even with the fast drying oils that I use over the top, it takes a day for them to become tacky or to the point where you can do another overlay.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't realize that, and I've known you so long. you don't work in traditional oil paint though. You work in water-based. So,
Yeah,
okay, tell me about that because I'm not familiar with it, although I've got friends who use it.
It's an alkyd. It's a resin mixed with an alcohol mineral spirit sort of mixture. The pigments remain more brilliant. They can actually be mixed with oil paint if you wish to extend it that way. And that you can buy a Gamblin product called Gulkyd to extend, right? And that will hasten the drying process of your oil paint. So that you can work it that way where you're adding the medium to the oil paint, or you can actually buy the tubes, which is what I do. The tubes of paint that are a quicker drying oil paint. And they're mixable with water. So my medium, rather than using the Gamblin product or another product, is water that I extend my paint with.
So you wash your brushes with water?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm a very messy painter. It's the only thing that has saved me.
That's so interesting.
Oh, thank you. That is so interesting, especially for the artists watching and for people just to understand how much is involved. Charlie, can you give us a little bit of a background on the demonstration of 3D modeling software?
Yeah, the particular software I'm using is called ZBrush, which is sort of an industry standard in the filmmaking industry because it's used primarily because you can do a lot of organic looking things with it versus a lot of other software that's more in CAD CAM for in industry making objects that might be machined out of another machine kind of thing. So this software is very organic, and it's sort of difficult because of the interface is very unusual as well, because it was made by a bunch of artists in California. And so what I was trying to show in this video is a little bit of the ease of use of creating something with in the digital realm, which I had kind of been following along in my career as a graphic artist. We would go and do video work at the company I worked for at different industries like Harley Davidson or GE Medical Systems. And I would always see examples of what they would call rapid prototyping, where these people were building objects using 3D printing. And I thought, oh, someday I'm going to be able to make my art without any dust.
Really?
But that still hasn't happened yet, quite frankly.
Carol and Charlie, I know you've had a chance to view our online exhibition Beyond the Walls. Would you be able to each of you talk about an artwork from that exhibition?
Well, and of course, I always tend to look at the 3D stuff. So I was very, and we watched Carmel talking about it together too. And I always like Carmel's work too, and Linda Cunningham and a number of the different artists. But Mark Pujamarty, I think, the blacksmith, yes. I was really taken by his work as well. And I always am very fascinated by, like you said, people's processes, or however you would say that, you know, how, because some of his things, they are simple yet very complex, and how you arrive at what you're thinking or the thought behind it. When I'm looking at some of the 3D stuff, or like in Fly Freeman's work as well, but more in Mark's case, I really like that because it's like I really enjoy the form, and I always think, now why can't I make something like that? Or or
think about influence. I mean, Carmel and Audra Noble influenced my life in that I changed from being a painter to a professional photographer for 13 years. And I had no intention of ever doing that until I met Carmel and Audra. And that completely changed. I went to Spain as a painter, and I came back wanting to be a photographer.
That's fantastic. Wow, you really influence each other so much. That's wonderful. Thank you for talking about the exhibition, you know, from other artists' viewpoint. That's really interesting.
Carol, we've got a background in teaching, both long careers in teaching. And one thing that's always impressed me was dealing with, events and exhibitions with the Aurora Cultural Center is I found them so progressive in that they're always bringing in schools and workshops for younger kids and all that, and they really get it involved. It's like they've got from my point of view as an artist, they've got the right idea of really educating people through the arts. And it's not just visual art. They do, music and all that. What do you think we could do, Carol? I mean, you've been in this province a fair bit. What do you think we could do to promote it so it becomes a wider thing? Have you got any ideas about that?
Well, I was looking at the Aurora Cultural Center and was really impressed that they were having plein air painting for youngsters. I was like, wow, that's extra cool. I think once you come up upon something that works as a curriculum, I think sharing that curriculum among different art centers would be certainly worth it. Or having maybe one sort of educational supervisor who could coordinate different activities from different centers so that they all felt the same in a sense, or if Aurora is doing plein air and another small art center, let's say out in a rural area, sees that, they may want to introduce it. So I guess having some sort of curriculum and sharing, of course, sharing that. And it can be across the disciplines. It could be music, it could be history, it could be, and having art added to it. There's nothing that we do in our lives that is not touched by art. And I think kids need to understand the importance of that.
Why the arts are important and everything, because you often said like you never really knew that much about history until you started doing art history, and then it really puts a lot of things in perspective that a lot of people don't think of all the time. And I mean, it's not really taught from an early age on in schools, which, and people go, young kids are really not going to want to know about art history. But I mean, when you start talking about it and giving examples and bringing it in and showing how everything does get touched. Anything that's been, any object made has been designed by someone, has been, manufactured somehow and talked with engineers and people who have come to get to something that's going to, create the life around us.
Well, if we didn't have the dreamers and we didn't have the kids who could take an abstract concept and make it into something concrete, we wouldn't have anything. So to me, that's important.
Can you tell us about your experience painting in Ontario, and what is the difference between your home landscape and the Ontario landscape, and perhaps comparing it to other places around the world that you've traveled to and painted in?
All right, it's like no other place in the world, I think. Maybe the closest is going out west in the States, but when you go to Killarney, you can feel the pulse of the group of 7 while you're there.
Yes.
And it was really interesting to see on your other art bite that we watched of Neil Griggs, his paintings and how the colors popped and imagery that he had done, from Ontario. So I think it's wonderful.
Oh, it is.
Place you can't look anywhere and not see beauty.
Yeah, and it's almost like being on another planet when you get there. I mean, the first time we came there and we drove in, and the sun was just coming down, and so all the trees it was in the fall, so all the trees were full, vibrant color. Just it looked like the whole place was like on fire with just all this energy and stuff, and then driving in and seeing all of our art buddies there, that was great. I mean, but then to go out with them and be where the group of 7 was and see all these different things, and it does look like you're back in Precambrian, time of dinosaurs or something. It's like I keep waiting to see something else poke its head up. But
I never saw a moose though.
Right, I never saw a moose, but very, very upset about that, you Canadians. Where are all the moose? But no, We had a great time and just
Many times in Clark.
many times in Killarney, and the visual stimulus, it's just off the chart. Doesn't make my head swim, but I mean, very finely tuned. I mean, everywhere you could look, you can see something that's just really vibrant and captivating.
Every place you look, it's beautiful. From the smallest object to the most, vast expanse of water. It's just beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Carol and
Thank you.
Charlie.
Thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure. And
Well,
we welcome you to Ontario.
I hope we get to meet in person because
I hope we do.
we have very, very good friends and nice bonds with people in Canada.
It's important to keep up those connections. I look forward to meeting you in person down the road.
Excellent.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Stay safe.
Thank you.